The sky over Zerathia glowed with the orange light of its twin suns, but that glow was nothing compared to the fires that burned through the city of Vareth, the planet's capital. Tall towers that had once gleamed with silver and glass now lay shattered, their fragments scattered across streets filled with dust and debris. Smoke rose in slow, thick columns, carrying with it the smell of metal, burnt vegetation, and despair. The air vibrated with the triumphant shouts of the Krith, the alien conquerors who had claimed the planet. The Krith were massive insectoid beings, their bodies armored in chitin that glimmered in the sun. Their limbs were long and strong, capable of crushing walls or tossing vehicles aside as easily as a human might toss a pebble. Their faces, with multiple eyes and sharp mandibles, betrayed no emotion, yet their gestures and loud cries conveyed absolute confidence and celebration. They had won, and they wanted everyone to know it. From the ruins of the central plaza, Krith leaders climbed a raised platform, banners of deep crimson fluttering behind them. Below them, their soldiers marched in perfect formation, stomping on the cracked streets and scattering what remained of the planet's defenders. The Krith had taken Zerathia in record time, and their pride was as sharp as the blades they carried. They thought they could resist us, one of the Krith commanders said, his voice a harsh clicking sound. Fools. Every city, every town, every structure, they are ours. Zerathia is ours now. The Krith leaders laughed and roared, their joy echoing across the broken city. They drank from silver cups filled with a strange, glowing liquid, raising them high in celebration. The soldiers cheered, banging weapons against shields, their unified sound almost like a storm. It was a display meant to intimidate anyone who might still be alive to witness it. But not all eyes on Zerathia's ruins were filled with fear. Hidden in the shadows near the edge of the plaza, a small group of humans watched. They were not part of the local population, nor were they warriors by traditional standards. They were a delegation from Earth, explorers, scientists, and diplomats, sent to observe alien civilizations. And yet, at this moment, they were the only beings on the planet with the presence of mind to see beyond the Krith's celebration. Captain Lena Morales crouched behind a broken wall, her sharp eyes scanning the plaza. She was a human of average height, with a wiry frame that belied her strength. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight braid, and her uniform, though dusty and torn from hiding, still carried the insignia of the Earth Space Coalition. Around her, the other humans stayed low, mimicking her careful movements. They're overconfident, Lena whispered, her voice barely audible even to those immediately near her. That's their mistake. They think the planet is theirs and they aren't paying attention to anything else. Watch their patrols, watch their energy use. There's a pattern. There's always a pattern. A young engineer named Ravi nodded, crouched beside her. His eyes sparkled with a mix of fear and curiosity. But they're huge, he said. Even if we find a pattern, what can we do? We're outnumbered, outgunned. They've already taken the entire city. Lena shook her head. Strength alone isn't enough. The Krith rely on their energy cores. Those cores power their weapons, their communication, even some of their movement systems. If we can learn how they work, and we can make a difference. Sometimes brains are stronger than brawn. The humans watched as a Krith patrol moved down one of the shattered streets. The soldiers carried long, spear-like weapons, their eyes scanning for any signs of resistance. A small silver drone flew overhead, buzzing softly as it scanned the area. The Krith were thorough, but they were not infallible. Lena had noticed gaps in their patrols, moments when their attention shifted to the celebrations or to their leader's orders. Those moments, brief as they were, might be enough for humans to act. As the sun moved higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the ruins, the Krith continued their celebration. Their leaders raised banners, made loud speeches, and even paraded a few captured defenders across the plaza as a warning to anyone who might resist. But each time the Krith focused on themselves, humans took note. Every movement, every shift in the soldiers' formation, every pulse of the energy cores. Lena and her team memorized it all. Hours passed. The Krith's celebration showed no signs of ending, and by midday the humans had discovered something important. Near the center of the city, beneath the largest tower, lay the primary energy core for the Krith's operations. It was heavily guarded, but not unguarded. The humans could see patterns in the guards' movements, their rotations, and even small gaps in the energy shields that protected the core. That's our opportunity, Lena said quietly. She pointed to the core, glowing faintly beneath its protective housing. If we can disable it, even for a short time, we can cause confusion. Chaos among the Krith. And when the Krith are confused, they make mistakes. Ravi swallowed hard. You mean, actually fight them? Lena gave him a small, reassuring smile. Not with swords or guns, with our minds, with our technology, with strategy. That's how humans win fights like this. Not by being the strongest, but by being the smartest. For the first time since their arrival on Zerathia, a sense of determination settled over the group. They had been observers, witnesses to the planet's conquest, but now they were no longer just hiding. They were thinking, planning, imagining a way to act, and that thought alone was dangerous to the Krith, who assumed no one dared challenge them. The day wore on, and the Krith celebration grew wilder. Their voices echoed across the empty streets, and their stomping feet shook the cracked ground. Yet in the shadows, humans moved quietly, taking notes, assembling small devices, and preparing tools that might disrupt the alien systems. Lena felt a thrill she had never felt before. It was not the thrill of battle, it was the thrill of hope. By evening, the humans had mapped the patrols, identified the weak points in the energy core, and created a rough plan for how they might act when the time came. Each member of the group had a role, each had to be ready. Every detail mattered. As the sun set, painting the sky in deep reds and purples, Lena looked out over the city. The Krith continued their loud celebrations, completely unaware of the small, determined humans who watched from the shadows. The firelight reflected off their armored bodies, making them look even larger, more terrifying, more invincible. But Lena did not feel fear. She felt clarity. We wait for the right moment, she said, her voice calm but firm. We watch, we learn, and then we act. They may have taken this planet, but they have not taken the spirit of those who live on it, and they have not seen what humans can do. The humans nodded, their faces set with resolve. They were outnumbered. They were in enemy territory. They were small and fragile compared to the Krith, but they were also clever, adaptable, and united. And as night fell over Zerathia, the humans began to imagine the impossible, turning the conqueror's triumph into their own opportunity. Somewhere deep within her, Lena smiled. The Krith might have celebrated today, but the humans were already planning their comeback. And when the time came, it would not just be a fight. It would be a statement, my turn, she whispered to herself, almost like a promise. The night over Zerathia was calm, but only on the surface. The fires from the Krith's earlier celebrations still burned in pockets across the city, casting flickering shadows that danced across the ruins. Lena Morales and her small human team had settled into a narrow alley near the outskirts of the capital. From this vantage point, they could see both the towering Krith barricades and the smaller patrols moving through the streets. Though the city lay in ruin, it was not completely empty. Small groups of Zerathians, survivors who had managed to hide during the invasion, crept cautiously through alleys and ruins. Some scavenged for food, others for weapons, and a few simply searched for family members. The humans observed quietly, careful not to interfere, but the interactions of these survivors provided valuable insight into Krith control. They noticed patterns in patrol routes and times, seeing how the Krith focused their attention on high-value areas while neglecting the smaller, less obvious locations. Lena crouched behind a pile of shattered concrete, her hands resting lightly on the small datapad she carried. The device displayed schematics of the city, overlaid with patrol patterns and energy flows she had painstakingly mapped over the past day. Each blinking icon represented a Krith soldier or drone, each line a path they regularly traveled. It was a puzzle, and Lena loved puzzles. Look here, she whispered to Ravi, pointing at a cluster of movement near the energy core. Notice how their patrols always overlap in this section at exactly 15-minute intervals? That means there's a 10-minute window before they converge again. That's our opening. Ravi leaned in, eyes wide. You're saying we could move through that space without being seen? Yes, Lena said, a small smile on her face. If we're careful. But more importantly, we can use it to study the core itself. I want to know how it works, how it's powered, and most importantly, how fragile it is. Nearby, a small human named Kale adjusted a compact drone. Its body was about the size of a football, with quiet spinning rotors and a camera mounted at the front. The drone was their eyes in places they could not go. With a tap on his tablet, Kale sent the drone skimming across the rooftops toward the Krith's central tower. The drone's camera feed showed the massive energy core in its protective housing. It pulsed with a dull blue light, and the humans could see faint conduits running from it to the surrounding city. These conduits powered not only the Krith weapons but also communication nodes, security sensors, and automated defenses. Lena's pulse quickened. "This is it," she whispered. "This is the heart of their operation." They watched for hours, noting the guards' rotations, the timing of the drone patrols, and even the subtle hums of the energy core. The Krith were powerful, but their technology was predictable. Like all creatures, they had habits, and in those habits lay opportunity. As the night deepened, Lena and her team moved carefully through the streets, staying low and using shadows to their advantage. Occasionally, they encountered Zorathian survivors. Lena made sure to greet them quietly, offering small words of encouragement. Most were too frightened to speak much, but their expressions, hope mixed with exhaustion, reminded the humans why they were here. "They've taken everything from this planet," one survivor said, voice trembling. "And still you watch? You do nothing?" Lena shook her head gently. "We're watching to understand. That way when we act effectively. One mistake from the Krith and things can change." The survivor looked doubtful but nodded. Lena knew skepticism was natural. Even so, every observation, every scrap of data made a difference. By midnight, the humans had discovered something even more valuable. The Krith, in their arrogance, had left a critical vulnerability in the energy core. It was shielded and heavily guarded, yes, but the shielding system had a predictable pattern. For a short span every 30 minutes, the shield shifted to recalibrate energy flows, creating a brief window where the core was partially exposed. It was a small opening, only a few seconds long, but that might be enough. "This is what we've been waiting for," Lena said, her voice barely a whisper but filled with excitement. "It's not a big weakness, but it's a weakness. And if we can exploit it even for a moment, we can see what the Krith are made of." Ravi's eyes shone with determination. "So, we fight them?" "Not yet," Lena said. "First we learn. We observe. We understand everything about them before we act. That's how humans win when we're outnumbered. Knowledge is our weapon." The team spent the next several hours mapping the inner workings of the core. Kale's drones flew into vents and maintenance shafts, capturing images of wiring, conduits, and alien machinery. Lena and Ravi analyzed the patterns, marking weak points and potential access routes. Even the slightest detail could make a difference. An exposed conduit, a timing mismatch, or a gap in a guard's attention could be exploited. As dawn approached, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Lena gathered her team in a narrow passage between two collapsed buildings. "We have the information we need," she said firmly. "We know the layout, we know the patrols, and we know the weak points. But more importantly, we understand the Krith. They are strong, yes, but they are predictable. They are confident, yes, but arrogance makes them blind. And blind they can be outsmarted." Kale nodded. "It feels strange. I've never been in a situation like this. Watching, waiting, planning." "It's not strange," Lena said, her gaze steady. "It's survival. And it's the first step toward turning the tide. The Krith think they've won. They don't know we're here. Quietly watching, quietly learning. That ignorance is our advantage." The humans then turned their attention to resources. They collected small portable devices, tools, and even spare parts from the ruins. Lena emphasized creativity. A broken vehicle could become a decoy. A damaged conduit could be repurposed to disrupt energy flows. Every object, every fragment of technology could be a weapon if used cleverly. Hours passed as the humans prepared. They moved silently, avoiding patrols, staying hidden even when Krith celebrations continued in the distance. Lena noticed how the alien leaders interacted. They celebrated, they laughed, they boasted, but they rarely checked on their soldiers. The Krith assumed loyalty, assumed discipline. They did not account for the possibility of intelligence being used against them. By mid-morning, the humans had begun to test small disruptions. A drone bumped into a secondary energy conduit, causing a minor fluctuation in the city's lighting. The Krith reacted briefly, scanning the area, but quickly dismissed it as a minor anomaly. It was exactly what Lena wanted. The Krith had attention, but it was divided. "That's good," she whispered. "They notice, but they do not suspect. That gives us space to plan more." Over the next several days, the humans observed not only the Krith, but also the planet itself. Zarathia had natural resources that could aid them. Dense forests could provide cover, high cliffs could serve as vantage points, and abandoned cities offered shelter and routes for stealth. Lena began creating a mental map of the planet's possibilities, noting areas where humans could move unseen and strike effectively. The humans also began studying Krith communication. The aliens relied on a combination of vocal commands and light-based signals for coordination. By noting patterns in gestures and sounds, Lena realized humans could predict movements before they happened. It was a small advantage, but in a fight, even small advantages could become decisive. Finally, Lena gathered her team for a crucial discussion. "We know more than we did when we arrived," she said. "We know their strengths, but we also know their weaknesses. And we know this planet better than they do, in ways they will never understand. That knowledge is power. Our next step is not to attack blindly. It is to plan a strike that is precise, intelligent, and effective. We don't have the numbers, but we have brains, and brains win battles like this." Ravi looked around, determination shining in his eyes. "So we wait, and then we act?" "Yes," Lena said, a small, confident smile crossing her face. "We wait, we watch, and when the time comes, we take our chance. And we remind the Krith that humans are never as weak as they assume." As the suns rose higher, casting golden light over Zarathia's ruined city, the humans moved through the streets again. Invisible among shadows and debris, they were observers, yes, but now they were also strategists, engineers, and quiet warriors. Every step, every observation, every small experiment brought them closer to understanding the invaders' weaknesses. And somewhere deep inside, Lena knew it was only a matter of time before the humans would no longer be hidden. When that moment came, the Krith would discover something they had never anticipated. Humans never give up. "And humans never forget, my turn," she whispered again. This time not just to herself, but to the city, to the survivors, and to the invaders who believed the planet was theirs. Days had passed since the humans first began observing the Krith in Zarathia's ruined capital. The city was quiet in the early mornings, except for the distant hum of alien machinery and the occasional march of Krith patrols. The humans had grown accustomed to the rhythm of the invaders' control. They knew when the guards shifted, when the drones scanned overhead, and even the faint pulses of energy flowing from the central core. Knowledge had become their weapon, and patience their armor. Captain Lena Morales crouched on a rooftop with a small observation team. Below, the Krith celebrated yet again, this time in a plaza that had once been a bustling market. Soldiers marched, banners waved, and energy lights blinked along the streets. But Lena's eyes were not on the celebration. They were on the smaller, almost invisible signals. A flicker in a guard's eye, a moment when a drone's path wavered, a timing mismatch in the energy flows. "Look here," she whispered, pointing to the data pad in her hands. "The patrol rotates exactly every 22 minutes. At minute 15, the eastern gate is unmonitored. That's our window." Ravi, the young engineer, leaned over her shoulder. "So, we sneak past?" "Partly," Lena said. "But the real advantage isn't just sneaking past. It's using what we've learned to disrupt them." The humans had been experimenting with small-scale disruptions for days. Using drones, they tapped lightly into energy conduits, causing brief fluctuations in lighting and communication systems. The Krith noticed, of course, but they dismissed these as minor technical glitches. That dismissal was exactly what Lena had hoped for. It gave humans space to act more boldly. Kyle, the drone specialist, maneuvered a tiny flying unit through a narrow vent that led into a Krith energy hub. On the screen, the energy core glowed faintly, and Lena could see the conduits connecting it to various weapon systems. Even a small interference in the core could create chaos among the alien patrols, but the humans had to be precise. A single mistake could alert the Krith to their presence. "Ready?" Lena asked. Kale nodded, his fingers dancing across the controls. The drone slipped silently along the vent, entering the hub and sending back a detailed map of the energy nodes. Lena studied it carefully. Every connection, every junction, every pulse of energy was recorded. She could see how the Krith controlled their weapons, how they coordinated their patrols, and most importantly, where the weak points were. "There it is," she said softly. "That conduit there. It's unshielded for almost 2 seconds every rotation. That's all we need." Ravi's face lit up. 2 seconds, that's so fast. "Yes," Lena said. 2 seconds is enough if we act smart. And that's the key. Speed isn't enough. Intelligence, timing, creativity. That's what wins battles humans can't fight with strength alone. The first small strike came that night. Lena led a team through shadowed streets using abandoned buildings for cover. They carried compact devices, tools designed to disrupt, not destroy. These were human inventions, improvisations made from parts scavenged in Zarathia's ruins and from their own equipment. The goal was simple: interfere with Krith systems, cause confusion, and withdraw before detection. As they approached a secondary energy hub, Lena gave the signal. Kale sent a drone forward, hovering over the unprotected conduit. Ravi activated a small device that emitted a pulse, just enough to create a brief energy disruption. Lights flickered, communication signals stuttered, and Krith guards looked around in confusion. But before anyone could react fully, the humans had melted back into the shadows. "That's it," Lena whispered, a quiet smile on her face. Small, precise, effective. Over the next few days, the humans repeated the tactic in different parts of the city. Each time, the Krith were surprised by minor disturbances but dismissed them quickly. That underestimation worked to humans' advantage. Every disruption tested the Krith's response times, weaknesses, and confidence. Meanwhile, Lena realized that psychological advantage was as important as technological interference. The Krith had never faced resistance in this way before. They were used to overwhelming force, not subtle intelligence and unpredictability. By striking carefully, the humans began to plant seeds of doubt among the invaders. Even the smallest disruption made the Krith hesitate, second-guess, and waste energy repairing systems that were never truly destroyed. One night, Lena gathered her team in a hidden cellar beneath a ruined library. The walls were cracked and soot-stained, but the space offered perfect cover for planning. "We're making progress," Lena said, her voice low but filled with determination. "Each disruption tells us more. We've seen how they respond. We've identified more weak points. And most importantly, we've seen that they are not infallible. They are strong, but they are predictable, and predictable can be beaten." Kyle raised an eyebrow. "We're still so small. What if they discover us?" "They won't," Lena replied firmly. "Not yet. And even if they do, we're ready. Humans adapt. Humans think. Humans find ways to win when the odds are impossible." Ravi looked uneasy but nodded. It feels strange. We're not soldiers. We're not trained for this. We're just us." "Exactly," Lena said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "And that's why we can win. They expect predictable, conventional actions. We are unpredictable, unconventional, and they won't know what hit them." The humans spent the following nights exploiting every opportunity. They created decoys using old vehicles and holographic projectors, luring patrols away from key areas. They manipulated small energy flows, causing drones to miscalculate paths and guards to miscommunicate. Every action, while minor individually, built a network of confusion that slowly eroded Krith control. During one daring mission, the humans used a series of rooftop jumps and concealed passages to place a device directly above a primary energy conduit. Kyle maneuvered his drone to guide them, while Ravi activated the pulse generator. The result was immediate, a brief surge that sent alarms throughout the Krith ranks. Guards shouted, weapons glinted in the flickering light, and energy shields wavered for the first time since the Conquest began. The humans retreated swiftly, disappearing into the shadows before the Krith could identify the source. But the psychological impact was already clear. Patrols were now more cautious, drones moved differently, and the alien leaders conferred more often. Even small victories mattered. They changed the invaders' confidence, making them question the city they thought was entirely under control. As the week went on, the humans' reputation among the Krith grew, even if the aliens did not understand why. Some soldiers whispered about ghosts that moved through the streets unseen, devices that interfered without anyone present. Fear, subtle and creeping, began to replace overconfidence. The Krith celebrated, but they were starting to doubt. Amidst all this, Lena kept her team focused on the larger goal, the primary energy core. They had learned enough about its defenses to plan a major operation, but timing was everything. The core was heavily shielded, and any attack would have to exploit the brief, predictable window they had observed. Until then, every minor disruption served a dual purpose. It tested the Krith's responses and kept the humans sharp. One evening, As the sun set over Zerathia, Lena climbed to a high rooftop overlooking the central plaza. Below, Krith soldiers moved in formation while their leaders held another loud celebration. Lena studied the scene carefully, noting every patrol route, every shift in the shields, and every weak point she had observed over the past days. "This is it," she murmured. "Every small action, every disruption, every observation, it all leads to this. The Krith think they've won, but they haven't seen the full power of humans. They haven't seen what we're capable of when we use our minds, our creativity, our courage." Ravi stood beside her, eyes wide. "You really think we can take them down?" Lena smiled, a quiet but determined smile. "We're not taking them down yet. We're preparing. Every move we make now makes that day easier. And when it comes, they won't just be surprised, they'll realize the true meaning of underestimating humanity." The humans descended into the shadows, moving quietly among the ruins, knowing that each step they took, each disruption they caused, brought them closer to the moment when they could strike decisively. They were small, they were few, but they were clever, adaptable, and united. And in that unity, in that careful intelligence, lay a strength the Krith could never fully understand. "My turn," Lena whispered once more. A promise this time not just to herself, but to the city, to the survivors, and to the invaders who believed everything was theirs. The suns of Zerathia dipped low over the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of crimson and gold. The capital city, Vareth, still smoldered from the Krith's initial conquest, but it was no longer silent. Shadows moved among the ruins, small and purposeful. Lena Morales led her team through a maze of broken streets and toppled buildings, every step calculated, every sound measured. Tonight, the humans would take the first decisive step. The energy core, which had once pulsed with the unchallenged control of the Krith, was now their target. They had observed, studied, and disrupted, and now they knew the patterns, the timings, and the weak points. Every detail had been memorized, every risk assessed. The moment of action had arrived. "Stay focused," Lena whispered, her eyes scanning the street ahead. "Every second counts. The Krith are predictable, yes, but we cannot allow any mistakes. Move quietly, strike precisely, and withdraw immediately." Ravi carried the pulse generator, its hum faint but steady. Kale guided the drones overhead, providing eyes where humans could not reach. Other members of the team carried small devices designed to interfere with communication systems and shields. Each human had a role, and all were united in purpose. As they approached the base of the central tower, the Krith guards patrolling the perimeter moved in familiar patterns. Lena counted the steps, noting the exact moment when the eastern gate was unguarded. A breath, a glance, a silent nod. Then the humans slipped past the patrol, blending into shadows. The ground vibrated slightly under the heavy footsteps of distant Krith soldiers, but the humans were careful to remain unseen. Inside the tower, corridors of alien architecture stretched before them, lined with glowing conduits and pulsing panels. The air smelled faintly of ozone and metal. The humans moved quickly but silently, using knowledge gained from days of observation to avoid patrols and security sensors. At each junction, Lena checked her tablet, confirming that timing was perfect. They reached a chamber that housed the secondary conduits feeding into the energy core. From here, they could interfere with the flow without being immediately detected. Kale released a small drone to inspect the area, and it returned with a live feed showing the weak points they had identified. Lena's pulse quickened. This was it. Ravi placed the pulse generator near a narrow conduit, activating it carefully. A soft hum rose, followed by a subtle pulse. Lights flickered throughout the city, and distant alarms buzzed faintly. The Krith guards paused, confused by the minor disruption. Lena motioned for the team to withdraw further into the chamber. "Good," she whispered. "They're noticing, but not understanding. Keep moving." The team navigated deeper into the tower, avoiding larger patrols and taking advantage of every moment when the Krith attention shifted. Lena paused at a high window overlooking the plaza. Below, soldiers rushed to check minor alarms. Their formations were slightly disorganized, communication faltering. Even the strongest and most disciplined Krith were beginning to show cracks in their armor. Finally, they reached the chamber containing the main energy core. It was massive, glowing with blue energy, surrounded by pulsing shields. The humans had studied it for days, memorized the exact timing of its protective patterns. Now Lena and her team prepared for the most critical moment of their mission. "On my signal," Lena said, her voice steady, "we interfere with the core. Kale, monitor the shields. Ravi, deploy the pulse. Everyone else be ready to pull back the moment the shields drop. The seconds stretched into eternity. Lena counted silently. 1, 2, 3. Now, she hissed. Ravi activated the pulse generator. A sharp hum filled the chamber, and the shields flickered for an instant. Drones and security systems around the core misfired, creating confusion among the Krith operators. Alarms blared throughout the city. The humans moved swiftly, placing small devices to amplify the disruption, causing cascading interference that affected communication and energy flow. The Krith were caught off guard. Soldiers rushed to the chamber, but the humans had already retreated into hidden maintenance shafts and passages. The sudden disruption caused lights to flicker across the city, energy barriers to drop momentarily, and weapon systems to fail. Even the alien leaders could not immediately understand the cause. Lena and her team moved quickly, guiding survivors and avoiding patrols as chaos spread. The once perfect Krith control began to crumble. Soldiers argued, drones malfunctioned, and communication faltered. Small victories multiplied, and what had started as a minor disruption became widespread disorder. From a safe vantage point, Lena watched the plaza below. The Krith leaders shouted orders, but their soldiers moved in confusion. The humans had not destroyed the city or the core. They had shown the invaders that control could be challenged. The psychological impact was immediate. Even the largest and strongest aliens now hesitated, uncertain and vulnerable. "This is it," Lena said quietly. "They are strong, yes, but they are not unbeatable. And they are starting to understand that." The humans continued their careful movements through the city, aiding survivors where they could, and observing the Krith's reactions. Each action built upon the previous, creating a chain of events that highlighted human intelligence, adaptability, and courage. They were small but precise, and in precision lay power. A Krith patrol approached a collapsed bridge, and the humans used the shadows to guide them away from resistance points. They observed how quickly the invaders adapted to minor disruptions, and noted every reaction for future planning. Every mistake the Krith made was a lesson for humanity. Hours passed, and the city descended into a controlled chaos. The humans, unseen and efficient, had altered the balance of power. Even a single energy pulse had ripple effects that the Krith could not easily correct. And as the team regrouped on another rooftop, Lena looked out over the city, the energy core still pulsing, but now vulnerable in ways it had never been before. "We did it," Ravi said, barely able to believe it. "We actually did it." "No," Lena replied, shaking her head, a quiet smile on her face. "We only began. This is just the start. The Krith think they control everything, but they have not seen what humans can do when we act together, when we use our minds, when we refuse to surrender." Kale nodded. "We've learned so much about them tonight. Their patterns, their weaknesses. We can do more." "Yes," Lena said. "More. The moment they relax, the moment they think they are safe, that's when we strike. And every strike teaches them something. Humans are not just survivors. Humans are clever, adaptable, and unyielding." In the shadows, the humans prepared for the next phase. Each device, each observation, each minor disruption was a step toward reclaiming Zerathia. They had proven that even against overwhelming odds, intelligence and determination could challenge brute force. As dawn approached, Lena whispered once again, almost to herself, "My turn." This time, the words were not a promise, they were a declaration. The humans had shown the Krith that they could challenge the strongest invaders, that their minds could outmaneuver brute strength, and that no conquest was complete as long as hope remained. The city still lay in ruin. The Krith still claimed control, but the balance had shifted. The humans had begun their turn, and when their next move came, it would not just be a disruption, it would be a statement. Humanity would fight, adapt, and overcome. The sun rose slowly over Zerathia, casting long shadows across the shattered city of Vareth. Fires from previous conflicts still smoked, and broken buildings bore scars from the Krith's conquest. Yet amidst the ruins, a new energy pulsed, not from alien power, but from human determination. Captain Lena Morales stood atop a crumbled rooftop, looking down at the central plaza. It was filled with Krith soldiers, still organized but wary, their movements slightly slower, their formations less rigid. The small disruptions humans had caused over the past days had shaken their confidence. Even the strongest and most arrogant soldiers now questioned the invincibility they once assumed. Lena's team gathered behind her, ready for the final push. Each member was equipped with compact devices, drones, and tools designed to interfere with the Krith's systems. They had prepared for weeks, observing, planning, and executing minor disruptions. Now everything came together. "This is it," Lena said, her voice steady. "Every small disruption, every observation, every calculated move has led to this moment. Today we take action, not just to survive, but to reclaim what is ours and prove that humans cannot be underestimated." Ravi, carrying the pulse generator, nodded. "We're ready. Let's show them what we can do." Kale released several drones into the air, their quiet rotors barely audible over the wind. The devices flew in precise formations, scanning for movement, feeding information back to the humans below. Each drone was a small extension of human ingenuity, giving them eyes and ears where none existed before. Lena led the team down narrow streets and across rooftops, carefully avoiding Krith patrols. The humans moved as one, silent and efficient, their confidence growing with every step. Below, the Krith began to notice unusual activity. Lights flickered across the city, energy conduits pulsed unexpectedly, and communication devices malfunctioned. Panic started to ripple through the alien ranks, subtle at first but undeniable. As they approached the central tower, Lena signaled the team to halt. The energy core was heavily shielded, but tonight, for the first time, the humans could exploit a weakness they had observed. The shields fluctuated for a brief moment during recalibration, just enough to allow targeted interference. Timing and precision were everything. "On my mark," Lena whispered. "Kale, guide us." Ravi, ready the pulse. "Everyone else, cover the exits." Seconds felt like hours as the team approached the energy hub. The Krith guards, already shaken by prior disruptions, moved uncertainly. The humans slipped through shadows, moving closer to the core. Lena's heart pounded, but her mind remained clear. Every movement had been calculated, every step rehearsed in her mind dozens of times. "Now," she commanded. Ravi activated the pulse generator, sending a controlled surge through the conduit. The shields flickered violently, then dropped just long enough for the humans to insert a device that amplified the disruption. Energy systems across the city faltered. Lights went out, weapons misfired, and communication channels went silent. Krith soldiers stumbled, unsure of what had just happened. Chaos erupted. Humans, previously unseen, moved among the shadows, coordinating further disruptions. Drones guided them, highlighting gaps in patrols and vulnerable points in the alien defenses. Survivors, emboldened by the sudden weakness of their conquerors, emerged from hiding to aid the humans, carrying supplies, small tools, and messages of hope. Lena led her team to the plaza. From their vantage point, the Krith leaders could be seen arguing, their confidence shattered by the cascading failures around them. Soldiers tried to organize, but confusion spread like wildfire. For the first time, the humans realized they had shifted the balance of power. "This is our moment," Lena said. "Every step from here counts. We act, we disrupt, we reclaim." Using small portable devices, the humans interfered with the energy barriers protecting key sections of the city. Krith weapons malfunctioned. Drones miscalculated flight paths, and the invaders' formations broke apart. Humans moved swiftly, striking with intelligence rather than brute force. Every action caused further chaos, amplifying the psychological impact on the Krith. Ravi and Kale worked together to disable a major control hub. The energy core pulsed erratically, its blue glow flickering in the dim light. The Krith attempted to regain control, but the humans had anticipated their moves. Each intervention was precise, calculated to maximize disruption while minimizing risk to themselves and the survivors around them. From the rooftop, Lena observed the battlefield. The Krith were strong, but their strength relied on predictable systems, centralized control, and rigid patterns. Humans, however, thrived on unpredictability, improvisation, and teamwork. Each small act of ingenuity created openings for further action, and those openings multiplied rapidly. "Keep moving," Lena ordered. "We've done the hard work. Now we finish it." The humans advanced toward the Krith leaders who had gathered near the center of the plaza in desperation. They were surrounded by a few loyal soldiers, but their coordination faltered. The humans, unseen until now, emerged from shadows and behind barricades. They had no intention of destroying the aliens unnecessarily. Their goal was to reclaim control and prove humanity's resilience. Lena stepped forward, her gaze locked on the Krith commander. Silence fell in the plaza as both sides assessed each other. The humans were few but confident. The Krith were many but uncertain. For a moment, the tension was almost unbearable. Then Lena spoke, her voice carrying across the plaza, calm and firm. "My turn." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of determination, intelligence, and the refusal to accept defeat. Every human present felt the significance. It was more than a statement. It was a declaration of human resilience. Immediately, the final phase of the operation began. Devices activated to interfere with the remaining energy shields, communication signals were jammed, and drones guided humans through the plaza, targeting weak points in the Krith's formations. Soldiers stumbled, confused by malfunctions and unexpected human movements. The once powerful conquerors were disoriented, unable to coordinate effectively. Survivors joined the humans, assisting in minor sabotage and rallying their fellow citizens. Krith weapons misfired, barricades collapsed, and their formations crumbled under a coordinated human offensive. The plaza, once the center of Krith triumph, now became a stage for human ingenuity and courage. The Krith leader, towering and imposing, realized too late that the humans had outsmarted them. Every attempt to regroup failed. Communication lines were down, weapons were unreliable, and their soldiers were scattered and confused. They had underestimated the humans, assuming weakness equaled defeat. But humans were more than strength. They were creativity, adaptability, and relentless determination. Lena advanced further, her team at her side, moving like a single, precise unit. Every step was calculated, every movement a demonstration of strategy and intelligence. Krith soldiers attempted to intercept, but they were disoriented, slowed by their malfunctioning systems. One by one, they fell back, unable to maintain control. At the center of the plaza, Lena confronted the Krith commander. He loomed over her, his multiple eyes filled with surprise and anger. Yet, despite his size and strength, he could not regain control. His soldiers faltered, and the humans' devices disrupted even the core energy that powered his weapons. "This planet is ours," he bellowed, but his voice carried no conviction. "No," Lena said firmly, her voice steady and resolute. "It's not yours. It never was. Humans don't give up, and we never accept defeat. My turn." With that, the humans activated one final device, sending a controlled surge through the energy core. The shields dropped, the city lights flickered, and Krith systems failed entirely. The invaders, for the first time, felt true vulnerability. The humans pressed their advantage, moving through the plaza to reclaim control. Survivors cheered, rallying to their side, carrying the momentum forward. The Krith, overwhelmed and disoriented, retreated in small groups, their confidence shattered. By the end of the day, Zerathia had shifted hands. The Krith were no longer in control, and humans, though few in number, had proven the power of intelligence, creativity, and unity. The city was not yet fully rebuilt, but hope burned brighter than any fire in the ruins. Lena stood atop a raised platform, looking out over the liberated city. She breathed deeply, feeling the weight of what had just happened. Humans had been small, few, and underestimated. Yet their courage, adaptability, and ingenuity had turned the tide. They had reclaimed what the Krith thought was lost forever. "My turn," she repeated. Not as a promise this time, but as a fact. Humanity had acted, adapted, and triumphed. And the Krith, humbled and surprised, had no choice but to retreat and rethink their assumptions about the species they had underestimated. Zerathia, scarred but alive, now stood as a symbol, even against overwhelming odds. Intelligence, courage, and unity could overcome brute strength. Humans had turned the impossible into reality. They had fought, they had adapted, and they had conquered, not through sheer force, but through the undeniable power of the human spirit. And as Lena looked at her team, at the survivors, and at the distant horizon where the Krith fled, she knew one thing for certain: humanity would never be underestimated again.